do agbantina mi egbe ganya blada onye ga kana mi da pena maudeta ke ya do agbanti wona naga do mi agbo lekenye afama lekenya shiom agbla o me de mi afa fia o lekenye fia sauma mi afa chichalao mi afa so he o mi afa so ko no la kata mi do agbanti boko na mi ba AVENOR TV fo nu po moji ke nkonye jejom happy dara egbeto mi agere mo client to anya le to mo egbeto gale to ke u gbe sha gbeto ta mi no mi agbo mi ga ya fidako kala gbeto mama aglo afato George elegbone fi ma gele ji sire kan ni o kata ke mi lo leta ko via no wa je gomo na mi George enwake
lo ke agbeto ga do den mi
ko mi ga gere mi afa agbedoji ndia ke enya ka bela show na mi ndia
enya o le zan egbe Gandhi ami kenye enu hulame la le India do come echo enya do dare mi ango ple ne bi get success.com enya do le fi ma ke mi acho adejefo ne mi ado ko be agbemo ike zomele a mi aten aswe jide poto e mi anya jido lawo
akpe ke grama na mi
yo do palao do jana osere ka ke mi agede me pata ho no kola me nya ya obe waten akpolo mi le mi ape agbemo zozo me you fo den ko ne be motivational quotes alo words yike anye eno kola me nya na nye papelo gbanto a eto Gandhi bonami eglobe you can't change how people treat you or what they say about you. All you can do is change how you react to it. You can't change how people treat you or what they say about you. All you can do is how you react to it or change how you react to it. Maten atro ameo le leke wawo edanye nyo edanye von leke wawo le agbeme alo asike wacho atro lenwa maton atro ble nyayo ke amegbeto wa gbolochun wa maten atro do meto adeka kenu ike ko na ten atro chunwenye alike ne chokwe alo alike ne cho wode enwuti aya ko na ten acho atro amo wa ton gbolonya nyu efa amo wa ton gbolonya vovon nya von de ochun fa cho ha megbele be ne ewo nyu ha ole gbologe ne wo von ha ole gbologe ne mega wo do meto de ke ha wa ole gbologe eta ninyebe ogbele alo aleke amowo nyue ovon wa matenwa wana rekechu nenema amegbeto le nyama kenu ike ko na tenwa wochu nyebe na atro alike necho wochu yovo be react alike necho react alo asitotro yike necho wo afodede ke necho wochu wa eyanye enu ike levivide ke evelia blobe. Sometimes we are tested not to show our weaknesses but to discover our strength. Sometimes we are treated not to show our weaknesses but to discover our strength. Riado ya mitona tetepo ble nuto amepo te dodo po gerote menye de na le metom alo le teto ble susube wo gbojo pe o na defia ke bon bena na ton adedesi wo hu sentepe eya tan le nu jora meji ma o metom eya tan le nu pe ka me ma o metom riado ya tete kpɔ ya alo dodo kpɔ ya wo va na ne mi de ta do dzinu ɖeka ta menye be woawɔe be amewo nakpɔ ale ke wo ŋusẽ mede ŋgɔ alo ale ke gbɔdzɔgbɔdzɔ le ŋu wò zã o ke boŋ kple susu be nate ŋu wò abe ame ɖeka ne akpɔ ŋusẽ ke le me o yi ke nate ŋu atsɔ aɖu dodo kpɔ yawo dzi eye mamlɛ yi ke matsɔ aƒo eta na wa ebe success doesn't find you. You have to go out and get it. Success doesn't find you. You have to go out and get it. Nu jejina mea mele we digel. Nu nyona mea mele we digel. Ke bon we o lebe na yi de goto eye na ba di nu jejina me. Egomede le agbemo soso me le wo don na me. Maten adasi le teƒe ɖeka koa anɔ kpɔ be nu jejena me neva ne yo alo dɔ na yi ŋgɔ ele be na to mɔ siamɔ nu ado vevie akpɔ gbɔ be nu yi ke di ele be ne jejena ya ejejena yi mate ŋu anɔ teƒe ɖeka kpɔ o ne nye sukuvia mate ŋu anɔ teƒe ɖeka ko akpɔ be ye nya agbalẽ alo ye xɔ dodokpɔ ƒe metsonu nyui o ele be na wɔ dɔ dɔwo anye be dodo na suna agbalẽ na lé wo agbalẽ nu yi ke enufialawo le wo fia na lé ɖe asi na suna agbalẽ ƒuƒui menye be anɔ anyi ko adze xɔ yo ma va di akɔ ao na suna agbalẽ ƒuƒui ekema ate ŋu akpɔ gododo nyui le me ne nya si tsa la tɔwo nye be nakpɔ be afɔkawoe ma de abe nyo asi atɔa dzedzina na mo va nu ƒle gbe le gbɔnye ɖi afɔkawoe ma de leke me tsɔ xɔ na wo leke me tsɔ ƒo na nu na wo ne to awɔ afɔɖeɖe ya woa ekema nu dzedzina me ava na wo abe nufiala maite pere kako na no adebe ya nya nu sia no ele be na aga yi ŋgɔ na suno no akpɔgbɔ be ye dze nu nya ɖe dzi kple susu be nu nyona me ke di le yeƒe nufafia ma yeƒe asem atu asu edzi abe fia ene yi ke amewo le te o akpɔda be leke ya tsɔ akplɔ yeƒe dumeviwo leke ya tsɔ adafo be nu dzedzena me ava yeƒe dukɔ me matɔ bɔna ko anɔ gbɔ kpɔ be nu dzedzena me anava na dukɔ ele be na wɔ dɔ na de so na yi ŋgɔ kple susu be na te ŋu akpɔ nu dzedzena me eya nakplɔ le nye kplo ƒe nkekea ƒe mɔzɔzɔ me dzinua me be enu dzedzena mea atɔ ava na mi akpe na o.
George nyateƒe edzegwagba ne va miaƒe nukpɔlawo wote wɔwɔ ɖe nyawo dzi gbe sia gbe meka dzi be naneke ma sese na wo le agbe me ŋukpe kame ɖe sia ɖe ke woado go le woƒe agbe mɔzɔzɔ mea woato me bɔbɔe ɖe dzideƒo nya yiwo katã ke ne tsɔna na wo gbe sia gbea mawu neve wo ŋu be dzideƒo nya yiwo katã ne woakɔe awɔ dɔ wɔ kpe ɖe ŋuti le woƒe agbe mɔzɔzɔ katã akpe kakaka miaƒe nukpɔlawo miaxɔ dometsotso kpi aɖe ko ne mi trɔ gbɔ kɔ nyadzɔdzɔ wole klalo miahevi na mi. Mi etrɔ gbɔ alebe eya debe nyadzɔdzɔ na ɖo mia gbɔ ke le egbe ƒe nyadzɔdzɔ mea eme kɔ be dzogbevi aɖe dzɔ le kasua nutɔ me etsɔ eyime ke aƒenɔvi aɖe etrɔ megbe kpata ke le go bubu me hã eme kɔ be wo eɖo dɔkita gã aɖewo tso China dukɔ me be woava kpe ɖe Ghana dukɔ ŋuti le COVID-19 dɔyɔyɔ me alebe dukplɔla xoxo John Dramani Mahama hã eŋlɔ agbalẽ alo gbugbɔ wɔ ɖoɖoɖo le eƒe agbalẽ ke wòŋlɔ kɔ ne ʋɔnua me be isi alo akɔdɔnyadzikpɔƒea ƒe nunɔla ne wòaxɔ vodada ke wòwɔa wòaxɔe de me be yewɔ nene ƒe vodada ke míage ɖe nyadzɔdzɔ me tsitotsito. Dzogbevi aɖe dzɔ le kasua nutɔ me etsɔ eyime ke aƒenɔvi aɖe yi ke woɖe ŋkɔ nɛ be ama broni yi ke woyɔnɛ be Slay alo Slay ye wònye le nutoa me etrɔ megbe eme kɔ be wonɔ hoʋiʋli aɖe wɔm etsɔ alebe wo eda ega home aɖe ɖe dzi be ame yi ke ɖu dzia ne wòaxɔe Kenya yo dara nyenye ba ameke atam aduwo aha dodo ahuhu mafinwie a amamai aduchi ahoga alaba apana vi achoba atanwa we ata avagada amodum alo avadode stage ye over duwo ahuhu adokwi alagbegbe alaba lefa hofifliama avad amama adokwi le stage aji hano awodu alaba ali dodo pra ntu vio ozoreji he vaida egbole stage aji doda ashi anchi hu ke le hofifliama wo adaje shebenya ameke aduchi le hofifliama ya ta ocho afanu na na kenya ega hu meke wodu anyi awo atune ne nefa afano via ka afa valiade ke umada nkona wa di glove vieba le meke ho gavo ye amo galachi alo ntuvi okalo koreji ogala anchi le stage ajia ano amojimbe ya to domene ya ajo alabele hamamua electric adela fima ashoki alo jiregbe kadia ali le fima ka ayo no piplima amo ho seba afa wa alo jijo ke pomu la ko pomu gale o manya ba mva vie we ta de kama cho de kala meni alaba egale stage ajije anigba yewu atro magba alaba o akwedada motri alo pefafaji hala efa pumoto jon Zuklola ko John Dramani Mahama nglo agbala alo agbale ko nglo ko ina bonu drofa ba e mada asida akoda nyayo ka wo hada gwala koda nya fa nu machocho jiwa ba ogagbo ai wasitotro agbala nchi ka bonu drofa de se ne ba o fudada ado da agbale ko nglo ko fe meta oni mo popo bo adoli alo agbugbo awo dododo kuda agbala ma wonchi aga atrove ka ama ko bale meke otro agbala ve anwure de ma ba isi alo akodanya jikpo papa no la na ajegbagba a lo de fodada yo katanke wo wole akoda ma cho no yo yoma wo alo de fodada mo katanji bayewe prosusubo watan anya nwika anya dasi na agbaleka onwulo nchi ama ko bala fajinu ya ma kemile afanu kakawi en agbe a ye bonu anoyida anyangu chigba alabayo deje shebo voda dola agbale ke onlo ma ya ta hia bo ya va odododo gede kele gben ke kaji awaga gbo anoyida nyaji agbronya o anyaji le bonu dropa ma ba bonu drola ona dronya akpoma bana afia chocho adelia na wa achina na mfa amayoke wo akoyi abanya yoko chode duklola na dan ko kufuado kple isi alo akodanya jikwofa nchi ene emekoba wo edo dokita ado cho China zukoma bawa akpere Ghana zukwa nchi le COVID-19 dolela yoyoma emekoba doyola yo alo dokita yawa onye dokita ga ole China zukoma yoke wonya nchi COVID-19 dolela nchi nwe wo edema vevie ba COVID-19 doyo fa ikele China zukoma na fetefe dokita ya odowom le aleba aimeke China zukwa kwe deje sheba le Africa zukoma dolela gajima wo adonana fa dokita wi de ke oda ba wa ba akpede Ghana zukwa nchi na makenya West Africa country mamleo ha wa akpede wonchi na ba dolela ajina da potolo alwa di dakra odeje shebe dokita onya me oke enyangu cho COVID-19 dolela alegbegbe ye onya leke yo hafi dolela na didilo alowa adida kala gubu maha dokita yo wo opun hedi global viebe anya jijona yo bo yo ha yo ava wo dolela Ghana zukoma akpere Ghana zukon chibo wa azu edokito le COVID-19 dolela pa nyawme eyata le yo pa do ma yo adonugba alo ajegbagba atomosha moji afia aforopa Ghana dokita oba watan ajegbagba a wale ike yo wona achina dolela alo adeneda yo afia oba wo ha watan adanana fa afo ba wa ada dolela dala tukome ke China to ojegbagba adonana fa amaya dala imeke okpo Ghana fa dolela aga aji na make le Kotoka International Airport alo Ghana yamabujafa amo gada oga hodola na fatafa da ayata China zukwa kweba anyoba yo akwara Ghana zukwa nchi le egoyoma ka ayanya jojo ke domi agbalandi afa akwaji
jana mizreka ke mia ideji play today in history egbe nyajojo alonuye ke ejovai olen kudoji le egbe nkeke ajia mia hevena me makplo me egbe ado India du come makplo me egbe India du come ike nemi gede India du come AVENOR Indira Gandhi amekenye fourth prime minister na India duko ekpolo India duko le efe dukpokpolo me fegedeo ewodo abe prime minister le India duko mecho 1966 vado 1977 wo gawodo le office make abe prime minister enecho 1984 vasere esime amevondi oko efe agbelesi le 1984 me ike wotro megbe woji AVENOR Indira le November 19th 1917 ye woji le Allahabad Uttar Pradesh le India dukome eku le October 31st 1984 eko febla adevo ade afi tromegbe nuike me oto afi kwanye be amevondi oko efe agbelesi alo wowi aji oto ke numekuku defia be anye India nyonyu gbanto yike ko prime minister pe office de asifegede yike amebubu adeke megatenwa akwe abe ale alokpolo du kole remayomo eya fiami ponucho Dr. Cornelius abe nyonyu gbanto yike titre le Ghana abe dukpola ene eye amoyo ne be the black America dukpolama yike titre bene ya age adodo le dunya gama oden ko nenema ke AVENOR Indira Gandhi ya ha chitre okpolo India doko fe gbogbo ya nenye jidepo na mi anyonyo be watan a chitre wa akpolo doko gede ke acho awuno na wa madem mi agere mi ape eve lododo echo mi together ome ndia medibe makacho dekade adejipu na nyekpolo wanye nuike mi akasuno nelese kwa nongolo dadi nano edom eji wanye jidepu na amebubu ha aglobe mosefe yenye home egomedi yufu gbome oglobe the end of a road is inside a room. The end of a road is inside a room. Nemi lemkude emo ple ehontia efia agbe ple eku wamegbeto jiwa elagbeme ne elechichivaro teferi agye nya dekwa godogodo ele yigbe ofia be nenyebe ele agbemo zoa amegbeto de sia de kele khiama efe nuwo a enyaku alo yodome nenya le ikwa godogodo wa aye godo efia be abewo americana elebe na no agbe le nwuti fafame na bobodokwe o na bu amesiame ana bobo otato ameyokele ngona ameyokele tel devio pele chichiosia na ana bobo na tonya tefe anya meke anya no koretola wo afodede wo nufo onusianu menako lele nu wo pla mowa na be menako ameseme na nya tefe be afoike dele na nye ameke adi anukware le enu katame nenamake olebe abe wo america de kana manyameke anya no fiti wala okebo aso la no kwareme nuike wonela amesema na kwe akpolo mi de ngongolo kokko eme kenye hiope agbane tawie na kpokwe gbanto be amegbeto de sia de kawoji chonyonyuma ekule ne ele kukugbe ne wole keleke gon ha ele kukugbe gake le samo pe agbane tabla etonvo ene pe kpokpo wi eve bado wi ene lia ebe ne dibi anu agbedidia kama na tonya tepe na de nu vondi oda na da la kpada dara le wo nume na tonya tepe na diwunti fafa na jerome kama ajeje na ta chichi odolobe mosefe a enye home akpena
mi afonu kwala mi edakpena mi gede mi ahodo mo chuchu so ade na mi gbo enya bubu gale to mi ahavi na mi
lelele Avivia della Signe, Dibe Magina AVENOR TV. Avivia della Signe, Dibe Magina AVENOR TV.
Agonami, nkonyenye Sera Music, mekpona AVENOR TV, hesiayi.
Lelele.
Fanu kwala mi awe gazova AVENOR TV fanu kwa mojia ke alaba mi le Facebook mi le YouTube ha se wa na like mi na share mi ba du ko na wa akpo mi na nu sia nu kene tibe ya wo pele mi abi adojo pele mi o ya adolo mi o nu sia nu kene be ya ko yo mi afa ka ko jesi oko academianchi na agbo mi kene be ya wo mi akpere nwo ka aso mi academia pa lamasa pa nyauma lo mi afa help tip nyauma agba mi ala nkuda bichanchi bicha mi ala nkura mi akpara ba de leke bicha le mi afa lama le ko wona na mi le mi afa lama mi lan nkura ngada onchi va iga ka mi ko bicha to yala agba to gale to hide ala gbegbe ala ba mi lan nkura bichanchi an mi ko bicha wona na mi le mi afa lama nyata fa agbogbo asugbo ayi mal mi ata gblo ofo la go bu ma ha ma bicha dada koyolo afa magba ha aga wona do fofofo na mi nyata fa bicha nya achika adodu ada vava ta mi ala nkuranchi mi akpera bede na dumade nko wona ha gbanto na bicha duma aweba ofa avama na abila avama no alo mi afa truth na abila fmanu wa na bicha duma awuga kra ga abiban kosago alo aleke ofa fmanu va na dunwa no wom do fma vi awu bicha adagara kra maga man kosaga kpo la vavalia ha aga wone ba mi afa dolala ku chacharo ka ganala la manamia o dene da kaba chen dolala ku chacharo ganala la manami ba funa videla meke hana dolala bubu vinami na bicha duma adanan mo kata da ba dolala ma na gele la manowa na bicha duma awuga pia seconds de ka kokko wugi ma totogala la mana crown ta bicha achika do dua de onye mi jina mi akpe bicha ha aga nyuna afuno ala gbegbe o da mana mbe bicha amanyinu gada la maika na duma na ya funo na duma gbanto andudu na de vehicle domon valia wonto ha achiko nya na o ga ndudu amanyimu ha na moka wona mnya bana de vehicle domona wa amanyimu kala la mana wa yenye fa ndudu na dunwa yenye fa ndudu ta amanyimu kala la mana wa ya samu la ko do me ta na be de via san ko do me ina bicha duma bicha amanyimu kata tafadum no lo bolama kare via ha ko do me wonto ha fola manu nyi de dolala de ke makpong la gbo ano mu fine ano de di de la fofofon bicha awana na fa ma ha kala gubu ma ha nana ba sukli do ikela la mana aji adidi akpoto kra ne ba sukli do ma la mana o e na bicha duma magala go sukli do ma la ga kpo magaga gele la mana o lo ga kene ba ala la mana ha fi na bicha duma ama ko ba majiji go adidi kra magan kosago kaka na ekoji na baji afi oglo vire la la mnu ga aliku aga hunu anu we fi o mewela na gbicha du maji eji a nyata fa mama ga ogu magan kosaga kpo ela go bu ma ha awa ne ba mi afa bu makpo honwo sana atu mi afa bu makpo honwo aba oba boost na immune system mi afa bu makpo honwo la makpo honwo yo ke eke coronavirus ava oba no fa la makpo honwo le da dire unsala unwa ka asasaba dolala na gara la manuta na du papa pela nu ka ba opa immune system na no strong alo opa bu makpo honwo na asa ba dolala magaga la na gbicha duma gbicha na du anabo opa bu makpo honwo kata asa ike dolala kuchachare ka magara la manao la gubu maha ada na stress na odo da di tamu fi ofam chona be fa fi vale ala da do yo kata ka wana la ta fa da di tamu we ma da di to ko la man na gbichadu ma mu daka ma wogo na gbichadu ajeji ina do ma na da di tamu na du gbicha chona du mu daka maga won ko sagala o fala mu gbicha fa do fu osugbo sa mata gbogbo wo fo ta mi asida fi ana mi ayi mi akpara gbicha fa makpa bichafa makpa da hade nko wona na mile miafa lama bichafa makpa to ko nyebe de na bicha makpa kan na kule fine ku kana de ku achio challenge no na numde ana ba ofa aikuma ano da zida ma ida kwa jigbara ka gbe ko gbo no be de aiku dollar alo fa aiku pototo gbara ka gba po ala ba gbicha fa magba ikena ko chicken num ta adan mo katanda ba na no da zida na ma ke ha ne ba afuno no ma aga na bo ga no na da zida ofola ma if gonna want so much healthy and healthy ni ikofola manya po ano da zida via ha ano da zida la fa doma ikena ne ka ma kan chalo dollar ka ma da funi ka amayo ka vitiji da na funa ha una minya na ba agbicha dum eje jalo na agbicha fa makpa ya na chio na de achio nunu aba chikena na gaba na tanwa fofu ajivi ala ba gbicha ya fa drop viji domado adan gbaglaro da mi o kataka ha mo na viji ya egbicha fa chima no na la lo gbicha fa makpa chima ka no na la e gaba klo mo kata ada oda ka da mo ran choba na tanwa fofu ajivi ha oyo ba dada afina no shu ta gbicha fa do fo fa makpa fa do fa osugboza matan blogger ovo na ba na kpo ovu na fa la mo no na gbicha fa makpa fa chima no ma awagaba ovu afa la mo no anu no ma ba bu ma che na awagaba bu na sugbola la mo no osugbo matan o kata gboglogo ta mi asida fia ta ro kuma na nyama to nso ba gbicha no dun ahia eme to gbaba mu do limi gba na dun osugbo pa ngbaglo ga ba ju ga ka gbicha nma fa da kamala nchu ta ono dun ahia yi ba wo do gara lo ko la mo awe ba ma ka tan wa da ko ju da le kana gbicha dun ta ada do la shada le la mana ke amanya gbicha fa do wo mi ahodo mo chuchu viare ne mi ava jigbeza boko na amasha meka jigbeza duma gbala for come le afa le gbe fishi afika for to call for viara la jigbeza duma gba mi do jigbeza to he na ya ma klo mi fa nu pola kata na jigbeza duma gba mi ba jigbeza boko na nsha nu ike na gbedora na mawa na we now but fama na wala for jigbeza to he aji le egban kakaji ami ado jigbeza na gifty Andy anya Ghanaian printer ye wonye egbe awoji ke awoji le 1984 mi do jigbeza to here na aya ma ba jigbeza boko ne fisha fika wala ale kokko jigbeza dume ma una garama ne wa padanchi ajina dwejijo so na yo fajima nsha no kenya fajima jiji na vama na aya ma le bebele ha mi edo jigbeza na tiny ihanya Ghanaian rapper jigbeza dume gba iha ojile 1982 mi do jigbeza toke na ayama jigbeza fisha fiko la jigbeza toke emi do na ayama kana mi gere gbeta zu koma mi akpo film de la alo fafo wala Keti Saga iha jigbeza dum agba mi do jigbeza boko ne mi bia jigbeza pam jajire shade na ayama la gban kakaji na ma kenya fafo wala alo actor Shan ya once ihala gbetazu koma mi doji gbezane ayama leiko kwa jigbeza dume ya mi bia ba wa jaji ne na ma pepepe na ba maredo na na ranchi ba gba fa jigbeza ma jaji ni alon bu wara do chomani ya mama na gara mani ba wa dida to na fa numo katama la go ma ha mi doji gbeza na fa wala alo actress de Matthew iha ala gbetazu koma jigbeza tohe emi dona yama ka fa wala alo comedian Frank mi ha mi do jigbeza to he na ya ma fisha fikola mi do jigbeza ni mi do jigbeza na ama shiama ike jigbeza du magbala Ghana du ko magodo la he ha magodo mi do jigbeza to he na okata AVENOR TV ba jigbeza boko na olu kamia ahodo ma chocho viara na mi gbo an to he ara li mi ha ko vi na mi
Lelele. Avivia de la signe. Medibe magina AVENOR TV. Avivia de la signe. Medibe magina AVENOR TV.
Agonami, nkonyenye Sarah Music. Mekpona AVENOR TV. Hesiayi.
Lelele.
nukwala mi etrogbo azamido wana fa akpa be vie de mi dan kwani ba nyato dem anya yo kata to tomra ma mi hega ve na mi fe mi asa mi no klalo mi aklo mi fa nkuji onyi da la ba mi nta fa poga egba ke mi agada amaji de ka ya kata mi nya ba galamse alo sika kukuda maje jia anya na ne ke gana du koma dashi da ju le yele du klola na dan ko fodo fo du ko klo gbanto eva ima ha edo akama chia do bo kpo galamse kuku fo nya oji ba wa awe ba wa ajujo galamse kuku alaba amado gbleba nana fa kama chio ka wo do anyi a o ma wo do anyi ta fa ta pada du klola va ta frida abamo ko do katama kami ayi mi akpo video adeke join us ahead go pure galamse wo wanchi mi akpo ne mi gbo mi afoncho nchi na mi.
The team's journey to this part of Manso and its forest saw scenes of destruction. Abandoned pits and mining settlements dot the road leading into the remaining part of the forest. After dodging water-filled, dangerous open pits, we arrived at this mining settlement deep within the forest enclave. 7 Chinese nationals were quickly located and arrested. Leader of the team conducted a search room by room. There were indications of military presence.
From what we are seeing here, it looks like there are some military men involved in this whole activity in this forest. Because looking at their uniforms, even some have names on them, but we did not meet any of them. But looking at it, I think the military were the people protecting them here to do this illegal job.
Okay, so what are we doing with the uniforms? First of all, we need to retrieve them and then ascertain as to who sanctioned their duties here.
So these are military accoutrements. You can find names on them. This one is Camel. This one is Camel. We have the other one, Amweni, on this one. And these are, as security men have been able to authenticate, these are quality Ghana Army uniforms, indicating that we may have some military involvement here in this site. In the midst of our search, a young military officer drove into the compound in a Tundra vehicle.
Yes, sir. Obi to say, we see a lot of people. Obi to say,
so just no more.
He started making some calls to his superiors.
I will do the staff sergeant, sir. We are here at this thing, Tontokrom. The whole duties, and there are some policemen and media be here.
Within the next 30 minutes, the whole place was crawling with over 30 angry, armed military men. Anger turned into heated verbal exchanges and near fisticuffs. A group of physically built men with known faces from the Delta Force group also joined them.
the Chinese were released. Our news team was prevented from filming anything from this time onwards as they overpowered the task force and took over.
Please stop what you're doing. Stop what you're doing.
Things got physical as the macho men assaulted my driver, forcibly took the keys to our vehicle and struggled with a camera technician for the camera. Under the watch of the military men, they broke our windscreen and side mirrors. Owner of the site, Donald Ntua, ordered the military to delete all footages from our camera and our personal phones. But we managed to retrieve items from our formatted card. It took the intervention of the Ministry of Environment and the Military High Command to get us released. The Minister for Environment told our news team, quote, Heritage Imperial only has a prospecting license, and so it is mining illegally in the forest. He is supposed to be drilling, testing samples to be presented in the process of getting a mining permit. But Donald told our news team he has all the documents giving him full access to mine in the forest. But in all this, the
forest. China thought over Chicago life Malganam say kum the maja jilete fama alaba soldier miapa badak bao yoke ola odo kishi ike dobu bula shojibo war over no I'm never maung jom lenefeta over soldier kama bla etonson you are never among jom le never manso forest ike wo Chicago le alaba lemeke wo ayi povito odo na feta pa bo over akpo fimada benu keji mu ba pa bo galam sekun obo yo ba pota fa wo yi a o gada homako badak ba fo awenye yo la fiaza unlo nkoraji yo pota je se ba badak ba we amu jon la fia amu yo ka illegal mining won alo galam sekun manya gana to ha onyo ro o chogba ta tu ko bubu ma va galam sekun le gana tu ko ma gana badak ba obo mu a o va wo mu jom le na feta fa alaba wo lo awo ko che bana amu yo ka nya na fa badak ba wa no gbo no Africa wo la watcha wo mo fa wo bia wo make the do machine alo do de fima banu ba jo na fa amaya wo yo kan China to yo ka va galam se akum la du kom a no ba agbo make do da no ba gble no US kala mama amako ba majichu o ba military man ada ka aku abufa va nyare glom ova o call alova o yo ado majichu ko amufa ko rafima zan alaba vigilante to ho la fima ova su gidigidi ofo amofo nya jojo do wala o banu gba o camera alo no delete ni o kata ke wo ova cover alo ova de la fima no delete o kata won ba so hunya fima nto alegbegbe ma no bobu e da kra abale ke mi pe na ma kere afato George jinami akpura alen kudan bade la Ghana to come eke sama de mobe waku galam se ala ku shikare maja ju vevelia ani ake gbomo le ne gbadagba wa alo soja wa ula odo kishi ofo do fo ala fufu ula o to odo kishi ale ke wako a protect juko alo ada juko no ye ba jogbe fere gbola la juko ji wa ala bana juko eta odo na fo soja alo gbadagba odi da eta odo no fo na umo no na madomu kaka egba ofa zu galam se mujola o ye la gobu ha ale ke wo gloni amu gloni be amu juko fa nu no mashiwo jram no to fo do kujijita enyema afa de enyema mi kpofia la akpabu ha akpaba juko fa ngono la de wo juko fa ahabobo abasoja kle bubu mo kata zam ko nto wo lolo nwo mi magara afato George jogbemi magara chi na yakwa leke la kwa gochi ma anyama video ema leke na kpocho mu
AVENOR happy akwa mi afete mi po gake metibe ma refer mi ko yi de alo ma kpolo mi ko gede enya iketututu ese alo dulise yike fonucho illegal mining wole do come here get me that's Minerals and Mining Act 2006 Minerals and Mining Act 2006 at 703 offense and penalties under section 62 to 64 concerning illegal mining. Alo yikeda si sekakuku agbadere se manowi alo galamse power to search and arrest. Yikefi abela ameyoke yire tefema be yo yire forest elemanso duame be wakpo New York eleji le fima ese de mo be wa ton nuka wa ton abacha eye wa le ameyo kele nuka o ele galamse wo ele mesana wa now me bu botrova ne mi nkude enu ya ontutu a e ya fiabala government officials so ame alon me yo kele se wota pe ko ma lo kele do ko plola onye ameyo ke o me chitre de wo penya tefeji o ese happy ele mesana ma o me chitre do penya tefeji o e fele ko mi le Ghana do ko le melo mebede scavators we obubu gbotrogbo yo o me den mena ya ma fifi ele ogbolo na mi be galamse kukule do koma edulisie me de mo le hu aka me ponu ikale jira fifi ya ese de mo be military men alo gbadagba we asrafo la wa to aba je jo amu be wa onuka wa ku esika semano wi alo wa galamse yo ne mi gerema nuka enu ya afia efia bela 1 o me le seji wo 2 mi pon enu ikejo le techima ne mi le nkure gbadagba ope donwin ope do enye be wa no ofe camp onyama senama efiko chono ba wa no a o pastor dama fimi ole bono no ne na de vato eduko pe nunu amesi de mutia wa ya onuka ajo fima is that happy element senama you fifie ne mi gede election ni keva yema techima military men we alo gbadagba mi po le to kele dumezio yo ke tumelo salona de kamelo so angetu kura chamelo si wo le to kele rodo me ni ponu ike iji le parliament ra military men alo gbadagba ola o gede ese wota pepe me
afi le ntoro kwisi oba independent
yes efficacy o peto do agocho aye wo da si na nu ojile afi do ko to ayengoa o demo o gede military members o gede parliament Ghana fe tefe kokoto o gede nuka pon mi le do ko megbe ese de kamega le do ko polo kaka mi gede me to the extent be do polo la globe yepe jidudu te a galamse me pon ma wodo aye wo yi me nenye be anye nu ike awebe ye fe do fe abe do polo la ne na bugo ha ye me chole mo lefe nu fo so me nations of address so economy enya ko herego ne mi pon nu ike la ji fifiera to the extent bela 1 vigilante groups so no tafama yike oden kona me Delta Force ma bia olo AVENOR happy Delta Force de meka tewole okwa o mele dunya hadeke attack o gake ne mi lenku ne ma efia bela there is a strong backing le Duarte onya se na malo under the government yike le jiru Duarte yike damegdena galamse kukoya because ne mi po video abele ke mi ape no pola opea o le nya jojo do la we o fo e mi to aton fo be no delete camera o pe pictures o katan ikemele tefe
mo le tefe ta enyade ewu gbogbolo nya tefe Ghana fifi afi mi do fi ahia na sitotro blibo nya fa nu pola ta enyama
AVENOR happy mi ayide no bubuji a mi le nkure nu ikejon ejapadio yike afeto amidu kunyame kakadu ko wonuka
Madachi
ta ipe A lot of no gedology ke mele ameji de mele seju.
Mele dokola be mi fa de tulisa dada nyiku. Va mi anto mi apolo long ku na du koma.
Yes.
Mi afa no kola mi ayi mi afa do mo chocho fi ada na mi gbo anya bubu gali mi hega fe na mi tami no mi agbo mi ga fi de ko.
Lelele. Avivia de la signe, me tibe imagina AVENOR TV. Avivia de la signe, me tibe imagina AVENOR TV.
Agonami, nkonyenye Sera Music, mekpona AVENOR TV, hesiayi.
Lelele.
Mi etrogbo aleba le fifi la fia enya ike dukla ho John Dramani Mahama choda electoral commission kle dukla na ado dan kwekufo ado mu a e makowo bonu dropa no ide nya ti fifi like ogbogbon ta mi akomi ko ide fima be mi o ha mi akpomi ke ajim ta mi asa mi atoda fia mi amayo hive na mi ankonye jejom happy dara kle
Nana iya jogbanwe bonsu
nke kama na nyu na mikata
by interrogatories. And Rule 1.1, a party may apply for an order giving the party leave to serve on another party interrogatories relating to any matter in question between the applicant and that other party in the cause or matter, and B, requesting that other party to answer the interrogatories on affidavit within such period as may be specified in the order. Rule 1.2 then makes reference to Form 10 in the schedule, and Form 11 is the answer that would be provided. We have complied with the Form 10 in the schedule in indicating what we are asking for leave to serve by way of interrogatories. And your lordships will observe that starting from number 1 in the interrogatories, where before I get into the specifics, there is another passage in the judgment of Justice Badebe that I wanted to refer to, and I would respectfully ask your leave to do that before I go into the specifics. And this is a passage from page 59 to page 60 of the judgment. And His Lordship says as follows: this leaves us with the application of the petitioners for interrogatories directed at the second respondent electoral commission. The application has been resisted on the ground that it has the effect of allowing the requesting party, the petitioners, to fish for information. If the said contention is correct, then the application must fail. We have carefully considered the application, and we are of the view that the request does not come within the designation of the word fishing as pronounced by Greer Lord Justice in the case of Rofe and Kevorkian, wherein he observed. And then he quotes that. And His Lordship, after quoting from that English authority, says, we have carefully examined the application relating to the request of the petitioners and are satisfied that they are within the scope of permissible interrogatory. So in that particular instance, the lordships allowed the interrogatories to be served on the second petitioner. And that is what we are seeking for your lordships to do in this case. In the specific interrogatories, we have questions regarding, in number 1, the practice in previous presidential elections involving collated figures from constituencies being received in the strong room in the presence of agents, and the further question whether that practice was followed, and the third question whether the 7th December presidential election was the first time regional collation centers have been interposed between constituency collation centers and the headquarters of the first respondent. My Lord, respectfully, these are matters which in the answer of the first respondent in paragraph 5 of the answer particularly, the first respondent sets out a procedure that the first respondent says is the procedure as detailed below. So, my Lord, these questions about the regional collation centers are directly related to what the first respondent sets out in paragraph 5. And equally, the question in question 4, how the results were transmitted from the constituency collation center to the regional collation center, that is clearly a question that arises from the process that is described, and that is clearly relevant. Yes.
Question 4. Should I understand it to mean the mode of transmission of the result? Is that what you are referring to?
That is correct. Okay. That is correct. And related to that, we also have in 6 a very specific question. Did the National Communication Authority facilitate in any way the transmission of results to the headquarters of first respondent? Again, that's a very specific question as regards whether the National Communication Authority facilitated in any way the transmission of results to the headquarters of first respondent. My Lord, respectfully, I mean, the issue of the mode of transmission is very important, especially for determining the authenticity of what was transmitted. And so it is very much at the heart of what is before your lordships in this petition. And whether the National Communication Authority facilitated is again capable of a very simple answer: yes or no. And in question 7, the interrogatory seeks to find out, when did Mrs. Jean Adukwe Mensah, is it Adukwe or Adukwe? Adukwe, yes. When did Mrs. Jean Adukwe Mensah, the chairperson of first respondent and the returning officer for the presidential election, first realized there were errors in figures she had announced in her declaration of 9 December 2020? When? This is a question only one person in the world can answer.
Mr. Chikata, why wouldn't you limit?
I'm sorry?
Why wouldn't you limit your references to the EC to the office, the chairperson, rather than the personality? It seems to me that your attack is against the personality of the person and not the office. So we'll be happy if you just limit it to the chairperson of the EC, because in her absence, any of the deputies, anybody at all could step in.
Respectfully, my lords, there is only one returning officer for the presidential elections.
And that is
that returning officer is not the EC. That returning officer is the chairperson of the Electoral Commission.
And that chairperson, that's all. We are not interested.
The chairperson has a name. I'm not able to mention the name of the chairperson. No, my lord, respectfully, I want to understand. Am I being prohibited from mentioning the name of the chairperson? Is that the issue?
Reading through your petition,
yes,
as to the instant application, the constant emphasis on the name. What I'm telling you is that we'll be satisfied just with the designation, because in her absence, any of the deputies could act in that position.
My lord.
So if it is an election petition and you are challenging the election of the president, it is sufficient that the institution charged with the responsibility of conducting that election had done their work, and the chairperson, who is the head, represents that institution and not the personality, the name.
My lords, with the greatest respect, I believe that the constitutional requirements regarding the returning officer and the particular circumstances that we are dealing with in this case do not make it possible to have the situation that you are envisaging, where somebody else steps in for the chairperson. Respectfully, the Constitution makes the chairperson and only that chairperson the returning officer. And in the circumstances of this case, that chairperson happened to be the person that we refer to in the petition. And that chairperson actually was the person who undertook her responsibilities in accordance with the various constitutional and legal provisions that we have. So, my lord, we do not mention her name by way of targeting an individual. That is very far from it. My lord, when I cited before you a decision of the Supreme Court, and I cited the decision of Justice AGBE as an individual judge, he read a unanimous decision of the whole court. I did not target Mr. Justice AGBE when I mentioned his name, because he happened to read that judgment, which was a unanimous decision of the court. And equally, I do not target Mrs. Jean Adukwe-Mensah when I say that she made the declaration on the 9th of December. It's not a targeting, it's just a fact that is material in this particular petition.
So thank you. You may continue with your submission.
And that is why in the next interrogatory 8, the question is again posed: how did Mrs. Jean Adukwe-Mensah, the chairperson of First Respondent and the returning officer for the presidential election, get to realize there were errors in figures she had announced in her declaration? And respectfully, my lords, as I said in respect of question 7, there is only one person who can testify to those matters. And question 9, in respect of the purported corrections, and we put corrections in quotations because, I mean, whether they were corrections or not is itself an issue. In respect of the purported correction made to the figures in the declaration by the first respondent, was there any prior process of conferring with agents of the presidential candidates? And then 10, did Mrs. Jean Adukwe-Mensah, the chairperson of first respondent, present Form 13, the declaration of presidential result form, to all the agents of the presidential candidates to sign? And if so, did all of the agents sign? 11 is on which date did Mrs. Jean Adukwe-Mensah?
Mr. Jikata, Adukwe in Ghana is a male. The female is Adukwe. She's not Adukwe.
I can only bow to the superior local knowledge of your lordship. So Adukwe, most grateful. My friends could not help me, but I'm grateful. I'm grateful to your lordship. Adukwe. And we seek to ask whether, that is 10, did Mrs. Jean Adukwe-Mensah, the chairperson of the first responder, present Form 13, the declaration of presidential result form, to all the agents of the presidential candidates to sign? And if so, did all of the agents sign? And 11, on which date did Mrs. Jean Adukwe-Mensah, the chairperson of first respondent, post a copy of the Form 13 at the head office of the first respondent? And 12, did the first respondent record any discrepancies which were occasioned by computational and mathematical errors in the course of the collation of the results? So each of these questions, which is capable of a relatively simple answer, we believe will narrow down the issues that are before this court. Your lordships will be aware that Regulation 44 of the Public Election Regulations sets out, particularly 4410, it sets out what the chairman of the commission, the CI 127 assumes that it will be a chairman, but the chairman of the commission it sets out exactly what is done in connection with the process. And the interrogatories that we are filing will, by clarifying these matters, will narrow down the scope of the inquiry before your lordships. We have this morning been served with an affidavit in opposition by the first respondent. And I would simply say to your lordships in this context that nothing in that affidavit in opposition provides a justification for us not being granted leave. My lords, in paragraph 4, following paragraph 3, in which the first respondent, which the affidavit is sworn to by Mrs. Jean Adukwe Mensah. And in paragraph 4, she says, I object to answer to paragraphs 1 to 3 as irrelevant as the steps taken by the first respondent is in accordance with the Public Election Regulations CI 127. My lords, with the greatest respect, whether they are in accordance or not in accordance is an issue before this court. Whether what has been done by her is in accordance with the Public Election Regulation is precisely an issue before this court. And that issue is not going to be determined by a paragraph in her affidavit. Indeed, my lords, the logic of the questions 1 to 3 should be obvious on the face of those questions. Questions 1 to 3 start from the practice before to whether, in 3, whether the first time regional collation centers have been interposed between constituency collation centers and the headquarters of first respondent is in the 7th December 2020 election. So, my lord, there can be no basis for saying that these questions are irrelevant to determine what actually happened, which is what this case is about. And in paragraph 5, she proceeds to object to answer 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now, my lord, 4 is how were results transmitted from the constituency collation center to the regional collation centers. My lord, I mean, this question can hardly be irrelevant to this petition, because this question about how results were transmitted is critical for the determination of the authenticity that she's claiming for the results that she declared.
Mr. Chikata, could you kindly point to the paragraph of your petition that this question is related to?
The paragraph that is related to is the paragraph of the first respondent's petition, as I indicated earlier. Answer.
Which paragraph?
The first respondent.
Which paragraph?
Paragraph 5, I referred to earlier. Paragraph 5, where she sets out, where the first respondent, not she this time, the first respondent, Electoral Commission, sets out the 4-stage procedure.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
And so my submission, the question how this collation was transmitted, or how the results from the collation center at the constituency were transmitted to the regional collation center, and how the results transmitted from regional collation were transmitted to the headquarters. Those questions 4 and 5 are clearly critical to what was actually done in this election, not just what is required to be done in general terms, but what was actually done. And Lords, we cannot see how questions 6, 7, and 8 can be described as irrelevant either. And my lords, in paragraph 6, we respect what the deponent seeks to do there is to anticipate your lordship's granting us leave, because she's giving an answer to that question, and respectfully we would like her to wait until you have given us leave to serve her, and then we can read her answer at that point. She is anticipating it in paragraph 6, and we are grateful for that anticipation, but that should await your lordship's grant of leave, and the service on her, the service on the first respondent of the interrogatories. My lords, there are other responses in the remaining paragraphs. I only comment on the one suggestion that we are unnecessarily attempting to delay the trial. Nothing could be farther from the truth. And we actually take exception to that suggestion and that averment in the affidavit. We take strong exception, in fact, I may say, to that suggestion that we are attempting. The purpose of discovery, as I've indicated, is to limit the matters for trial. And if only she would just stick to answering those interrogatories, I think the processes of this trial would be expedited, rather than to make facetious statements about our intentions. We are therefore respectfully asking that your lordships grant us leave, and I believe that upon these interrogatories being filed, they can accelerate the processes for responses from the first respondent, and therefore for the further processes of this trial. That is all.
Yes, my lords. My lords, we are opposed to this application. Lords, we rely on all the depositions in our affidavit in opposition. Lords, with respect, the answers to the questions being sought are in the petitioner's own petition. The answer filed by the
first respondent and also the answer filed by the second respondent. My lords, Regulation 44(9) of CI 127 sets out how the first respondent will declare results. And in it, questions being asked of us that where did the regional coalition center pop up from is all in the law. That is why we are saying that everything is in the law before this court. And those are the steps that the first respondent followed. My lords,
Session of them.
My lords, 44 sub 9. The regional coalition officer shall, upon receipt of the presidential election coalition forms as set out in Form 9 of the schedule and the presidential election results summary sheet as set out in Form 10 of the schedule from the district electoral officer in the presence of the public and with not more than 2 counting agents appointed by the parties contesting or the polling agents of the party, if any, assemble and collate the presidential results from the constituencies as set out in Form 10 of the schedule. Fill the presidential regional results coalition form as set out in Form 11 of the schedule. Fill the presidential regional results summary sheet as set out in Form 12 of the schedule. Request the, so my lords, it is all set out. That is where what is done at the regional level. And my lords, we have pleaded in our answer that indeed the petitioner had signed 13 of those forms. My lords, we have also stated in our answer that where a party fails or refuses to sign on any of the forms at every stage of the process goes on. Yes, my lords. No, that's just a second.
That you are submitting before the court that your responsibility is stated in the law, as you rightly stated. Yeah. So, can you? I know, depending on the ruling of this court, you may have to answer or. But
my lords, regarding you are asking about question 4 and 5. Yes, my lords, as we have stated, I think somewhere in the answer, it's transmitted by fax. Now, my lords, we would also realize that the questions posed seek to introduce through the back door new facts which are not anywhere in the petition before this court. My lords, I wish to refer your lordships to the case of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo versus John Dramani Mahama and the EC. Lords, is reported at page 61 of the special edition of the Supreme Court of Ghana Law Reports. My lords, I would draw the court's attention to page 71, and with your kind permission, let me read what the court, the Supreme Court, speaking through Adina JSC said. In the circumstances, we hold that the petitioners are sufficiently and well informed about the election results, which has enabled them to mount this petition on grounds of malpractices in 4,700 and 9 polling stations based on the contents of these duplicate documents in their possession. The affidavit in support of the application does not disclose any need for the inspection and making photocopies of original documents. Thus, I wish the court to apply this decision and hold that the matters for which the petitioner seeks interrogatories are well within his domain, and he was well armed with those before he filed the petition in this matter, and therefore he is bound by his pleadings in the petition and therefore cannot come through the back door and seek further information through this means. Plus, I would also wish to refer your lordships to the Metronunu case, Lords. Lords, it is Metronunu and others assist the Electoral Commission 2007 to 2008 Supreme Court of Ghana Law Report 1250. Lords, I wish to draw the court's attention, with your kind permission, to the obiter dictum of Dateban JSC. Lords, it says, it should be noted in particular that Article 49.3 requires the announcement of the results of the voting at the polling stations before they are communicated to the returning officer. Such announcement has the effect of putting the results in the public domain. Observance of Article 47 means, in effect, that the Defendant Commission publishes at each polling station the results from that station. We do not therefore see the need to imply as a condition of the validity of the declaration of the election of the President-elect the added publication obligation that the plaintiffs have argued for in this case. If the election system operated by the defendant could not function without such a publication, we could have been persuaded to imply such a publication in order to make the system workable. So, my lords, the point we are making, the submission I'm making, is that there are over 38,000 polling stations countrywide. The petitioner appointed agents, at least 2, in each polling station. The results were counted, forms filled, his agents signed. If they refused to sign, it moved on to the constituency. They were collated, he had agents there, they signed. If they refused to sign, it moved on to the region, and so on. And then the returning officer, the presidential returning officer, got all these sheets. The petitioner's own agents signed 13 of them. The second respondent's agent signed 14 of them. Some of the 12 other agents signed. There was no total signature on all the 16, but based on the law, the system continued. So, my lords, the information that they are seeking are well before the court in the pleadings, in the petition, in the answer. And therefore, it's our prayer that this application be refused.
Mr. Amenuvo,
yes, my lord.
My understanding of part of the submissions of the petitioner is that in 2013, during the 2013 election petition, an application was made for interrogatories by the then petitioner before this court. And the court granted it.
Yes, my lord.
The decision given by AGBE JSC at from page 54. And so this is a similar application for interrogatories, which is before us. So this is being used as precedent.
No.
So what do you say? Because counsel is entitled to rely on precedent and invite the court to follow precedent already set out.
My lords, distinguishable precedent. My lords, with respect, The 2013 situation is different. And mind you, my lords, interrogatories, grant or refusal, is discretionary. And it has to be based on the set of facts at every situation. It doesn't arise in this case. It doesn't. And that is why I said, yes, there is precedent, but precedent is distinguishable based on the facts and the processes that are before you in the pleadings, my lords.
So why are you saying that in this particular case it is not applicable? In
my
this
lords,
particular petition, why are you saying it is not applicable?
Beloved, because the answer he seeks are all in the document before the court. And then the law that they themselves have relied on, which we also rely on, they are there. I just read to you the steps. You are asking me that when did the original issue come up, etc. If you read the law, you will see that it's in there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, my lords.
My lords, I pray that I be permitted to make a few observations of law.
Are you making observations or you should be permitted to respond?
Submissions.
I think the application is basically directed at the first respondent. Because you will not be compelled to answer any question. Yes. If I understood counsel for the petitioner, yes, you are not under any obligation whatsoever to answer any of the questions serialized in the document annexed to the affidavit.
Yes, my lord, and it is true that no specific interrogatory has been directed to the second respondent. However, we are an interested party in this matter, and if we can assist the court on legal issues, we think we should be permitted to do so.
Yeah, Mr. Akutampa, if, as you rightly said, if it's a legal issue, if it's a question of law, we can hear you, because seriously you did not file any affidavit in position with regard to the facts.
Yes. That is what
so as a party in the petition and an interested party, if there's any legal point you want to address for the benefit of the court and all the parties, I think you can do so. Go on.
My lord, very briefly, my lord, I think the first point to make is that interrogatories must relate to matters in contention between the parties. And that is clearly set out, my lords, in Order 22, Rule 1A, Rule 1, Sub 1A. It reads, with your permission, a party may apply for an order, A, giving the party leave to serve on another party interrogatories relating to any matter in question between the parties. My lord, and it is further reaffirmed by 6A of the same rule, which states a proposed interrogatory which does not relate to a matter mentioned in paragraph A of sub-rule 1 shall be disallowed, notwithstanding that it might be admissible in cross-examination. So it's a well-established rule of the common law that a matter that may be refused in interrogatories may be allowed during cross-examination. So our position is that all the issues that they are raising here, and if you look at the pleadings, are not in contention. They have been sufficiently answered. There may have been admissions which put them out of contention. And the petitioner may have his occasion during cross-examination to throw some of these questions at the EC. Furthermore, my lords, it is our case that if your lordships consider the questions as to NCA, there's nothing in the petitioner's case that raises that matter as an issue. Very, very well. So my lords, that
allowed to make some raise points of law to assist the court.
Yes, my lord.
You are taking this
finally.
Yes.
The final point I want to make
is
that counsel for the petitioner referred to Badagry JSC statement in the earlier presidential petition, but he did not quote Grill LJ, because what Grill LJ said is significant. And my lords, with your permission, I'll read from here. It is, however, the nature of fishing interrogatory trying to get, for the purpose of the defendant's case, evidence which he has not already got. On these grounds, having regard to what has frequently been decided, that because any question is a proper question to put in cross-examination, it is not therefore necessarily a proper question to put in interrogatories. We have decided that interrogatory 3 also ought to be disallowed as being a fishing interrogatory. And my lords, it is our submission that these interrogatories are indeed fishing interrogatories and should be disallowed.
May I, with your leave, just address a couple of points? My Lord, I would respectfully first observe that counsel for the first respondent in effect admits the relevance of these interrogatories, because he claims that they are dealt with in their answer. So there can't be any doubt that they are relevant. And the question whether they are in fact dealt with in the answer is the question that your lordships are going to have to decide. But he said that those matters in the interrogatories are dealt with in the answer. Now, my Lord, the second point I respectfully make is that he said that everything is in the law, and those are the steps that the EC is supposed to follow. We know that. We know what is in the law. But the interrogatories are designed to elicit what actually took place in order for your lordships to determine whether they were in accordance with the law or not. So you can't just keep telling us that everything is there in the law, everything is there in the law. We know that. But we have to establish a certain factual basis on which...
My Lord, with respect, is my learned friend re-arguing?
No, this is not re-arguing a point. He is responding to the issues you raised when you quoted the regulation.
Yes, but my Lord, it will have to be on points of law, as is the tradition in the courts.
Counsel,
yes, my Lord.
Let him proceed.
And my Lord, learned counsel also referred to what Justice Adingra said. And I believe he quoted from page 71. My Lord, I respectfully draw your Lordship's attention to the fact that the decision of Justice Adingra was in respect of an application for further and better particulars. It was not the interrogatories. The interrogatories were dealt with in the decision of Justice Badebe. And in her decision, in respect of the application for further and better particulars, her ladyship actually makes it clear she makes it quite clear that her decision is tied to the fact that there are other applications pending, including the application for the interrogatories. And basically what her ladyship was saying in the passage which I'm about to refer to is that those other applications are sufficient to take care of the matter which is being there. So that decision, which is about further and better particulars, respectfully cannot, it cannot be a basis for the submissions made. And as regards the reference to an obiter dictum of Justice Dateba, the less said about obiter dicta in this particular case, the better. I respectfully submit that far from us coming through any back door, we are actually coming through the front door of the Electoral Commission based on their own answers in order to ascertain the facts on the basis of which this court can reach a just determination.
Yes, for my edification, question 6. Question 6.
Yes, my lord.
How does it relate to the pleadings so far filed before this court?
My lord, counsel actually claimed that they talked about faxing. Now, all these communication systems, phones, faxes, fall within the authority of the National Communication Authority. And therefore, my lord, therefore, a question as regards whether there was any facilitation by the National Communication, my lord, I need hardly acknowledge that, I mean, the security of, communications in terms of an election process, all those matters are clearly important in the context that your lordships are faced with. So the question whether the National Communication Authority as the institution that is legally mandated to have responsibility for communications facilities in the country by law, whether they facilitated in any way the transmission of results, my lord, is an appropriate question.
Mr. Chikata, this is not one of the grounds which you have stated in your petition for invoking our jurisdiction. Look at your petition. It's not one of the grounds. The mode of transmission of the results is not one of the grounds.
My lords, with the greatest respect, the mode of transmission cannot be a ground for a petition like this. The mode of transmission cannot be a ground. The mode of transmission becomes relevant in an adjudication related to what the first respondent is claiming was done. The first respondent has filed an answer and made certain claims. Now, my lord, those claims don't need to appear in our petition to be relevant. Those claims are the claims that are put in answer, and therefore issue is joined in respect of those claims that have been made in the answer. So the question that we are raising about the mode of transmission is critical, because it is a question that enables this honorable court to determine the authenticity of whatever transmission took place. That question is extremely relevant. And I believe learned counsel for the second respondent claimed that it can be asked in cross-examination and so on and so forth. But we don't need to wait for cross-examination. The purpose of dealing with it at this stage is to avoid having to go through lengthy cross-examination.
Thank you. Thank you.
The court will take a very short adjournment and come back to deliver the ruling.
All rise.
Avivia de la Signe, Medibe Magina AVENOR TV. Avivia de la Signe, Medibe Magina AVENOR TV.
Agonami, nkonyenye Sera Music, mekpona AVENOR TV, hesiayi.
Lelele.